In the FOMO Lounge this week, we have Ral Gilmour. Ral, welcome.
Hi.
For anyone that doesn't know, Ral is the owner and director at Gilmo Productions based in West London. And Ral, before we dive into a bit more about you, give us a quick intro to Gilmo Productions.
So Gilmo Productions, I started sort of 9.5 years ago. I come off the back of working for a production company for about 8 years, mostly in cricket coaching stuff. So I was really keen to stay in sport, stay in the same sort of genre of production in terms of like multicam shoots, interview styles, kind of this, that, and everything. And then I didn't want to just stay in cricket. I did love cricket, but I kind of been a bit sort of, I felt like I'd done my bit there for 8.5 years. So I wanted to start Gilmo Productions. There's no real, we had a bit of a niche at the start of being just sport.
Yep.
But now we're kind of branching out doing other things that aren't, just sport, which is it's quite a nice change up. But yeah, we work with a lot of brands, a lot of agencies, a few governing bodies, and yeah, it's going pretty well actually. I've been fortunate that we haven't had to do too much searching for work. It's sort of come to us, which has been
That's great.
Very lucky, yeah. But yeah, it's good.
And let's take a step back from that. Give us a whistle-stop tour of your career so far. Did you go down the kind of traditional route of film school and so on?
I did. Actually, it all started in when I was about 8. When my parents got their first camcorder, and I became obsessed with making like movies. And I used to make like gangster movies with my brothers. I'd always be behind the camera, and it was my 2 brothers and 2 mates who lived down the road, and we'd have a few epic car chases where my mum would be driving like a really slow reverse out the drive. Like, mum, quicker. There was no speeding up in the edit or anything back in those days. It was all very much
Are these available online to watch?
We can't find them.
Oh,
we
that's
think
a shame.
that maybe my brother might have got rid of them from embarrassment or something. We're not quite sure.
Oh, no.
But they were in the attic and they've gone missing, which is really annoying because I love to see them. Like the 3 potatoes. Oh, they're ridiculous. But yeah, I used to in-camera edit on them. That's what I got really into in terms of like I would rewind and jog frame until I found the cut, and then I'd go next.
These are like mini DV tapes or
yeah,
something?
mini DV tape.
Yeah.
And I became really obsessed with that, and I loved it. And then when we played it back to our parents later, I used to press play, and I had a ghetto blaster that I would have like I think it might even be a tape. I'd have a set of tracks ready.
Right.
So I would press play at the right time and then stop. And then there'd be a new scene. I'd be like, fast forward a bit, press play.
Wow.
So I had it already. Occasionally the music mix wasn't great. There was a few dodgy. Oh, wait, just wait 1 second. But yeah, all started from there. I used to make loads of movies like that. And then, media studies at uni where I did a bit of documentary film, a few other bits. And then went to film school in Hollywood.
In Hollywood?
Called, yeah, in Hollywood.
Wow,
yeah.
How was that?
It was really good fun. It came a bit out of the blue. Like they asked, the criteria is you have to send in a film that you make, and I made one of my brother on a skiing holiday actually. What goes up must come down. Don't look it up. It's pretty terrible when you watch it now. It's quite old school. But they really liked it. How I got quite a little bit arty with it as well.
Yeah.
And I got a load of like quite quick cuts and stuff at times when it needs to be for skiing, etc. And then got accepted. I was sort of like, well, I'll give it a go.
And why did you choose this career path? I mean, like you obviously said you started at 8 with a camcorder. What was it that pulled you into that world?
Well, it's funny. I kind of at school I never really knew. I always knew I loved the kind of filming work and stuff, but I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do as a career. And then it was mostly at uni that I got the buzz from watching things like documentary film. I was like, right, I want to make documentaries actually. That was a big one for me. And then I was like, actually, I'd love to go into the filming world and be like a director again. That'd be really cool. So when I went to film school, you get a 12-month course. The first 2 months, you try everything. Right. So I was like, why don't I just try, see if I like the sound, see if I like the lighting or the DOP, see what I like. And after 2 months, 2 I chose with directing and editing. So I majored in directing, minors in editing. But as I started going on film sets, I was like, actually, I much prefer being in the dungeon, in the edit suite.
Really?
Because I'd be a little bit bored on set occasionally.
Yeah.
So, if you'd be like on the lighting or something, you set it up at the beginning of the day for a new scene, you move it around. But a lot of the time, I was a bit bored on set.
There's a lot of waiting around, isn't there?
There's a lot of waiting around, cross-service table, and all that. For me, I really like either the editing or the directing. So I made a film at the end of the year, and really enjoyed that process of editing, working with the crew, with the DOP, and that was really good. So that when I finished film school and they said, look, there's a great thriving film scene in London. They said, go back to London and see what you can get there. So, everyone in Hollywood wants to do what you want to do.
Right.
So I took their advice, and it was within 2 weeks I got this job at a production company. And I thought,
wow,
because I was looking for like a few.
And that was through
jobs.
through reaching out,
Through reaching out, I think I went on. Was it Production Base or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw one, and it was a 3-month temp thing. I said, I'll do it for 3 months, get a bit of experience filming and editing there, and then I'm going to go into film, try and make my break as a director.
Wow.
Or editor. Yeah. So, and then I stayed there for 8.5 years. I kind of.
Right.
Maybe I did really enjoy it. It was a great company to work for because they threw you in at the deep end from the word go.
Yeah.
It was sort of, I was primarily there to start with a bit of editing, and then within my first week it was like, right, come as second camera on this.
Really?
If you mess up a bit, don't worry, we'll use a lot of camera one. And then it was And
you must have been only early 20s at the stage?
Yeah, I was 24
right.
at the stage. Yeah. So yeah, it was.
And that was this production company specialised more in the commercial space as opposed to features and so on.
Yeah, it was a lot of primarily working for the ECB, where we did a lot of coaching videos, which would be sort of multicam, 3 or 4 cameras. We'd have a huge crane to get a nice sort of wide shot, etc.
Yeah,
and then a lot of something called View for the Middle, which is like almost a video magazine of behind the scenes of England cricket.
Right.
And we'd release this every 3 months. So that was really busy. We were always going out shooting, whether it be interviews or like a story in cricket. Like I remember the floods, when there was those floods, we had to go to all these poor cricket grounds that were just like buried in water.
Right.
Who were trying to recover, and they were getting some funding from the ECB. Oh. So all sort of stories like that. And that's what really gave me the hook, almost like the small documentaries, like a little 2-3 minute video, which is like a mini documentary in itself. And that's when I realized, when I started to become the sort of main cameraman, that, actually, you kind of get to direct, you get to film, and you get to edit. You get to do all of it in one go.
Yeah.
So I was like, rather than being on set, kind of twiddling my thumbs sort of thing, I quite enjoyed that kind of mini programs element to it.
And I guess in order to do that, you almost had to step away from the opportunity to climb the ladder towards the traditional route of big features and working your way up the hierarchy of whatever it might be, second camera, the first camera, then up to DOP or whatever it might be.
Exactly. And I was always in the back of my mind for the first 3-4 years there, I was always like, I will go back into, I'll leave here and then I'll go back into the world of film. But then I think the more I enjoyed doing what I was doing, the more I kind of realised there's a bit of a niche here, and maybe I don't go back into the world of film. And then after 8 years, I kind of realised there's the opportunity to start my own thing and to start picking, not just doing cricket, picking like different things.
I meant to ask, I wonder, your choice to go to Hollywood to film school, you had London film schools on your doorstep. Why that choice?
It was strange. I looked at sort of 2 or 3 London ones, and then I don't know how, someone gave me a New York, like a flyer for a New York film school.
Right.
And I thought, maybe I'll try the New York one. That'd be quite cool because it's in New York. And then I think I was entering into there, and I think when I was looking on the internet, I saw the LA one. I was like, Hollywood, that'd be cool. So it was literally per chance. I think I applied for 2 or 3 London ones, but I heard back from Hollywood for the LA one first.
Right.
And it was sort of, I think they accepted 150 students every sort of couple of months, but from a big pool. So I kind of almost felt like, that's a bit of a privilege that I've been accepted there. Yeah. So I was like, I've got to give it a go. I've got to go and do it. It's in Hollywood. I was 23. You know what it's like at 23. You want to go and travel and
absolutely.
So I chose that over the London one, almost for the excitement of it, and because it was it's LA, it was Hollywood,
and would you, to anyone else out there who is at that similar stage of decision making in career, would you recommend such a decision?
Definitely would, yeah. Film school was really good. There was the experience you get in that year. Like, there were long, hard days. Like, we'd work from 9 till 9 every day, and then when you finish at 9, a lot of times I go into the dungeon and I carry on editing.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long a day.
Yeah, it was long days, but I loved it because I was like, I'm there for a year. I'm going to make the most of it. Yeah. So if I would volunteer to work on so many people's films, so there was constantly films going on throughout the year, and you'd say, put your hand up and say, look, if you need an editor, assistant editor, I'm there. Yeah. If you need me on set.
So it sounds like it was important to be proactive whilst at uni as well, to do stuff just beyond what you were being told, and to get stuck into other projects that were going on around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you put your hand up, you go and volunteer with people around, or someone who you always make your short film in your last 2 months there. So you kind of just hang around a few people who are making their film, say, look, if you need me on your set, etc. And some of them were quite tough. We went into the mountains one time, and like our rap days didn't finish till like 11 o'clock in the evening, because there's a lot of evening stuff. And then one of them all went through the night till 4 a.m. So they were long, hard days. Some of them you'd start at 6, wouldn't finish till 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. So that was quite an eye opener. It did put me off a little bit sometimes when you're on set and you're like, actually, I much prefer to be in the dungeon editing or something. But yeah, if you just volunteer, put your hand up, and vice versa, it meant that when I came to make my film, I got quite a few volunteers going, oh yeah, we'd love to work with you on this film.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a sound guy? I was like, yes, I am. Yeah, something.
Do you are you still in touch with any people that you met in Hollywood?
I am, a few of them. One of them I speak to a lot. He comes over to England quite a lot.
Yeah.
Gerber. He was my sound guy on my film.
Right.
Super nice guy, really nice guy.
Yeah.
He also loves his soccer, as he calls it. Loves his footy. So when he comes over, we try and go to like a game or two.
Right.
And he loves his golf as well, so play a bit of golf. But yeah, I keep in touch with a few of them. None of them have really made it, which is interesting actually. None of them really made it into the film world.
Interesting.
But a lot of them started working in things like, whether it be from Netflix to a lot of TV stuff, which is interesting. And Gerber did a lot for one of the sports channels out there, which he loved and then hated and then moved somewhere else. But he's in a really good job right now. But that's the one thing about film school I would say. It was really, really good, but when you go out, it's a little bit sort of right into the wide world. You're on your own. There's no like, oh, certainly when I was there was no like, oh, we'll recommend you to here and we'll put in a good word for you here.
You're out the door and then it's like
you're out the door and you've got your short film with you as your sort of show reel.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like best of luck. They're great. It's great film school. But then on when you leave, you're a bit like, okay, now what?
Do you think that that's perhaps a shortcoming of modern film schools in that you get given creative skills, but perhaps not the business and career skills?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Maybe other film schools are different. I definitely don't want to put down the LA Film School because it's really, really good. But there might have been, that was maybe the last month, there might have been a bit of, right, when you go out there, you're best to do this, this, and this. Take it here, we'll recommend. There was a bit of that, but maybe because they'd already spoken to me about moving back to London, they didn't know as much about the London film scene, so there was a bit of that. But
yeah, and then jumping forwards to back when you were in London, how you mentioned that the work has often kind of just come your way. What have you done to help with that?
Yeah, I like to think that when I started, I always said that I got a little bit lucky. But I did this one shoot for Jaguar where I had to do some Jaguar car racing with England cricketers and Australian cricketers in, which was super fun. But I thought I'll pour my heart into this and not charge too much. So
yeah,
sort of do it quite low budget. This is my first sort of filming with them. But I think, I did it really well and they were really happy. And that kind of brand of doing it with Jaguar got passed on to like another one within the agency said, we also work with Buxton. Do you fancy doing some like a cricket masterclass with Alistair Cook?
Wow.
And then it was sort of like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then it got passed to another brand. Who did that Buxton one? So it kind of got passed around the agencies. And then I think someone left that agency, went to another agency, and then they had a whole load of brands. So for the first 2 years, it was very brand heavy, the stuff I was doing, just kind of around a few agencies.
But it sounds like you over-delivered and then were kind of in the right place at the right time when an opportunity arose and your name got put forward for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I was getting emails from people I'd never heard of going, oh, hi, you came highly recommended from
that's great.
such and such agency. So
yeah, that
was really nice. And that was the thing I feared the most when I started the company I was like, there's going to be quiet months when I have to look for work. Thankfully, touch wood, there was one quiet month and I was like, is this it? But then the emails sort of come in and you're like, oh, okay, there we go. It was actually quite nice to have a break.
How stressful has it been? Are there stressful moments in terms of having too much work on or too little work? Like, a lot of people we've interviewed so far, are in the world of project by project kind of existence, and you're often too busy to take more work on, and then the phone's not ringing and you wish it was, and it seems to be like this kind of it's difficult to get past this boom or bust, existence.
Yeah.
Have you got any strategies that have helped with that?
Because there are definitely stressful moments. You never really want to say no to anything, so you're always sort of like, oh, I just got to take this on. And there were moments in the sort of year leading up to lockdown where I was, it was really stressful. Actually, we'd taken on like a lot of work. I was working a lot of sort of evenings and weekends, but it was great because I felt like the business was starting to grow, and I was thinking about starting to hire people. And I did end up hiring someone, Jay, who's been really good. He's been a great hire, great cameraman, great editor, just really good person as well. Really nice bloke, great to work with. So that has helped a lot. But in the stressful times for both of us, I guess, when we get super busy, sometimes the client does just will say, actually, we need this back, within a week, and it'll be like, okay, that's fine, yeah, no worries, we can manage that. But then you got 2 or 3 of those all in the same week, and you're like, oh, okay. Then you got to start managing freelancers to get to edit a bit or come and film this because we're busy editing that, or out filming somewhere else. I find that's the stressful part when all the jobs suddenly go on top of each other and you've got a crazy month.
Yeah.
And you're sort of like, I've got 2 young kids as well. At the time, I remember they were sort of 2 and 4, and I was just sort of, bless my wife, she was great. She would say, look, you just knuckle down.
Really?
Let me do the kids' bath time, etc. I can see you're in a world of dungeon, edit suite, and then going to shoot like the next morning at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely stressful moments, and I think you've got to try your best to manage it. I've never really done much of that managing before. Trying to, you're juggling clients and timelines and filming and editing, but somehow we kind of all get through it from.
Yeah. So you don't have a kind of any hard lines in place as to when you don't accept work or time that you will take off. Is it more organic? You kind of you see how you're feeling and what the workload is like, and deal with each on a case by case basis.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think when we do get to those really busy ones, we will occasionally do the odd late one or have to work weekend. I would sometimes, my favorite time to edit would be on a Sunday night. So really? I'd have a nice weekend with the kids and my wife, and then get to Sunday night, and it would be about 6 p.m. and I worked through to midnight. And for me, it was the best time because there was no emails, no clients coming in.
I know what you mean. I often find that working at that time is the most productive for me as well. But
it's like peace.
I can't help but think it's a bit unhealthy as well, especially because I now have I've got a young daughter as well, and it's like I do worry that modern life is just always encroaching on private, pretty sacred downtime.
Yeah, and Sunday night should be a nice peaceful evening.
If there's any time that should be sacredly
Sunday night,
private, it's Sunday evening, right?
Yeah, homemade pizza night, Sunday night, relax with the kids. But it was like 6 o'clock, right? This is like, and then I can really get ahead on the week. So I know when the clients are all sort of bombarding me with Monday morning emails, I'm like, yeah, I've got this ready. And
could you run your business well if you said, I'm just going to work 9 to 6, 5 days a week?
I mean, I do. Yeah, so I'm 8 to 6 every day, and at the moment it's going quite steady like that, and I haven't had to do too many evenings or weekends for a long time actually, since pre-COVID.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it's been really good, and occasional weekend of filming, but otherwise we're kind of managing it quite well. I feel like Jay and I, we spin off really well from each other in terms of just getting a workload done. He might be, right, okay, let me work on the graphics for that. You start the editing, and then I'll start that other one while the the graphics are rendering or something. I'll start syncing that and send it over to you. Yeah. So it's what has helped massively is having a really good colleague like Jay. Yeah. Because before, when I was managing everything on my own, I was like, okay, I've got to do that, and right, okay, maybe I'll give a freelancer a call and say, look, can you just cut this first bit together, and then you get it back. And
it's difficult. Like I find using.
They don't know. Almost.
Yeah, and you can't blame them often. Editing is difficult if you're not in the team and fully clued up on the project. It's very difficult to hit the brief correctly. I think you need someone in house often, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And they know how almost sort of how he knows how Gilmo works as well. He's kind of like, I know that you want, like, I'll set up all the best rushes, timeline, get them all ready, and he would have cut the interviews all really nicely so they're kind of succinct. And a 25-minute interview, he might give me back a nice little 4-minute interview that I can sort of play with and stuff. So,
and what was the moment when you realised you needed someone in house?
it was that year, 2000. When was pre-COVID? Like 2018. We took on a big project, a big coaching project where we were doing sort of 800 to 1,000 videos for them.
Oh my word!
And Jay was working 2 days a week for me. He was working part-time for me, part-time with Sky. And I said, look, we've got this big project amongst all the other sort of clients. Would you fancy coming on board full-time? He didn't have to think about it for too long. He said, I'd love to.
Oh, that's great.
So I was like, brilliant.
Great.
I was like, how long, how much notice? And then it wasn't too much notice. Then he was working for me full-time. But yeah, that was the moment I realised when that big project came on, because I could just about manage it with him working there 2 days. It was really handy. I'd like to set up, right, you're in Tuesday, Friday that week. Right, I'll make sure that you're kind of on those shoots or doing this bits of editing. But when the big project came, I was like, now it's going to be busy, 2 people for 5 days.
I found it very nerve-wracking hiring someone, the first person full-time. It's like, shit, you're kind of at that point where the pressure's built so that you feel like it's too much for one person, but then you're like, is it enough for 2? And not just is it enough for 2 like going forwards, not just for this project. You have to then win the work to justify, having the extra expenses every month and so on. I found, that very stressful.
You've got like a 6-month project, let's say, but when that's over, you're like, oh God, now I don't want him twiddling his thumbs, and I've hired him and stuff. So
sometimes maybe the necessity is, what do they say, the mother of invention in terms of it forces you to go and win that work. And on that note, you say that the lion's share of your work has been through reputation and word of mouth and so on. Do you have any active outreach and marketing strategies of any sort?
No, we don't actually, which is, I guess because the work has come to us, but they probably should do a little bit more of that, whether it be on social media or, we've had a few new clients come in from actually posts on LinkedIn. So
interesting.
Got quite a few connections on LinkedIn. I'll post one of our new videos and I'll just get a nice sort of comment back going, I really like your work. Can I connect, sort of thing? And they'll connect with me and say, oh, we're thinking about doing this project, sort of thing. Have you done anything similar to this? And then I'll send them something we've done similar and go from there. So in terms of, marketing on just getting out there a bit more, I probably need to do a little bit more of that, because we did have a time earlier this year, and obviously during COVID, where there was a few sort of quiet moments for the 2 of us where we didn't have a load on. I was sort of slightly worried. I was like, God, has COVID really sort of struck us hard?
To stay,
So that's something that I need to look into a bit more, actually doing a bit more marketing.
I wonder whether your business, because it's often in I feel like the corporate and sport world, it may well in some ways be better suited to LinkedIn than Instagram. Like a lot of our younger filmmakers who we've spoken to win like all their work through Instagram, for example, and they spend a lot of time building their own brand on it. But it seems like LinkedIn might be the place to find perhaps more old school businesses in some ways. Like not if you want to produce music videos and like fashion stuff or something, but perhaps more in the corporate space. LinkedIn could be a good channel for people to win work.
I think definitely.
What's ahead for Gilmo? Do you have a grand vision of any sort? Is it do you have a strategy in place, or is it more kind of organic?
Strategy, I think, is to grow a little bit, but not too much. I didn't want too much of to grow to have sort of 8-10 people in a production company, which at the start I thought that would be sort of maybe an aim to try and do that. But I quite like the control of controlling small teams. So I think ideally if there was maybe 3 or 4 of us would be good, if there was enough work to give out. I'm loving having 2 of us because I've got a great pool of freelancers, and you probably know some of them from all our time working together, that they're quite nice to dip into now and again when we're overly busy and that we might need a sort of 3 or 4 camera shoot. And I guess the worst thing about having using good freelancers is that they're popular freelancers. They will be busy quite a lot of the time. So if you've got a shoot like next week, and then you're like, oh, you're available. Oh, no, I'm fully booked for next week. So
Yeah.
that's the hard thing about using freelancers. They're great, but they're not always available at short notice, obviously.
Yeah. Your decision to keep, you mentioned that your ideal team size is 3, 4, something like that. What brought that about? Because I think often one's initial thought is bigger is better, right? When you get into this, you want to go. People often start wanting to work on features, and you want to work on the biggest thing possible with big brands and big teams and so on. But actually, often, eventually, people realize, well, actually, maybe that's not for me. Is it like a change in ego, perhaps? Do you have to get over that egotistical side and then decide, what, actually, I'm going to balance my stress levels in my family life?
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. So one, I think I a little bit selfishly, I still love the filming, editing, directing. I love being part of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if I suddenly had a bigger team of 5, 6, that would go out the window. I think I would be managing a lot of the time. I would be sort of checking edits and doing a little bit of that. So I'd lose a little bit of what I love, which
That's
I think
interesting.
would be a shame. Because I still absolutely love doing it, and I still feel like I can do it really well. Maybe the second point I'd say would be almost worry a little bit that the quality would diminish a little bit with more people.
Yeah.
I feel like in a small team, if there's 2 or 3 of you, you manage it really well. You're really on top of things. I'm sort of monitoring and directing a lot of the shoots, and I'm in the game with 2 or 3 of us. You go to a production company of 7 or 8. My worry is that you're like, okay, you've got so many shoots going on at different times that the quality might diminish, and that's probably me just being maybe a little bit of a control freak, a little bit nervous about managing 7 or 8 different people and having 7 or 8 good people, because I've found someone who's really good in Jay, and I think us both being good is putting out some really good work. But if you've got 7 or 8 people and you're slightly concerned about
of course,
1 or 2 of them, I don't know.
And at the start of your career, I'm just thinking, because you've mentioned that you still love all the technical and creative elements of filmmaking, whether it be being behind the camera or in the edit. Is it the fact that you wanted to be involved in all of them that at the earlier on in your career you chose not to specialize in one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there's so many bits that I liked about it. Like even everything from when I did a lot of sound design stuff at the start of film school, there was a little bit of me that was like, oh, maybe I'm just a sound design guy, and I love that. But even now, when we do editing, all the levels have to be like perfect for me. I really like the levels to be good. Any sound effects, adding, I love everything from doing the sound to the editing to the filming, the directing, the kind of planning, the pre-production of it all.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, we can have 4 cameras, we can have a crane up high doing this, we could get a cool drone shot doing this and that. So I think part of me just still loves everything that I didn't want to specialize in one thing. Yeah,
I found that as well. I mean, I'm certainly jack of all trades, master of none, and never felt that. In some ways, I didn't have the confidence. I didn't feel like I had the ability to really nail one of them. So I thought, well, I'll just become a generalist and hoover up as much other business as possible. But it does mean that you can get behind the camera, get in the edit on different days of the week, and it keeps it very varied, doesn't it?
Yeah, massive. It keeps it exciting as well, because you're always doing something different, and we're kind of lucky in a way that all our clients are so varied, they're so different. We might be doing we got like a conference next week, Monday, Tuesday, and then we might be doing a brand promotion one on Wednesday. I was flying a drone, filming an ex-Queen's racehorse last Tuesday, doing some really nice shots over these amazing fields. So there's like a real variety in what we do. So it keeps it exciting.
The last shoot I did with you, I think, was we flew down to Monaco to film the footballer Ronaldo.
That was cool.
Which was pretty special. So if one of those comes up again, give me a call, right?
Definitely invite you again. That was a lot of fun.
On the flip side of that, what's the most stressful part of film production and running your own business?
Probably that evening having to do Spanish
of
subtitles.
Course, you're right.
He spoke in Spanish, so we had to do the edit that evening.
That's right, and you had to find a translator
to stuff like that. That's quite stressful.
Client demands are often...
Client demands because we had to put out the edit that evening, and then trying to match up the Spanish subtitles in the right times and stuff.
Yeah.
And then whilst making edits, stuff like that is quite stressful. I'd just say the most stressful thing is when you take on too much. I've been guilty of that way too many times before, and then you get to the Sunday night editing, and then you get to the just working a lot of evenings, and it gets really tiring. And you realize, actually, my wife would suddenly say to me, you realize you've done 5 18-hour days in a row, sort of, just getting up at 6 and then just not stopping until
Sometimes it
midnight.
takes someone else to pull you back a bit. Like I find that, you just get lost in it, especially editing. Editing is like a black hole of time, right? You can get your head down at 9 a.m, whatever it is, and you don't
surface till exactly. And the time goes so quickly when you're editing as well. You're just so in that moment.
The filmmaking industry is plagued by some of the worst mental health out of any industry in the UK, and I'm sure it's probably replicated worldwide. Do you have any tips on how to avoid burnout or anything like that?
Yes, good question. Tips wise, I'd say, manage your workload, because when I was saying yes to everything, I probably should have been saying no to them, or had 2 or 3 people working for me when I was taking on too much.
Yeah.
Because that was super stressful. Almost sounds bad to say, but lockdown came at quite a good time, where it was like, actually,
really,
we can catch up on all the stuff. So our first 6 months of lockdown, we were still editing. Like, we had all this backup and stuff. Yeah. So it was, I'd say, don't take on too much, because you can get really stressed with a big workload. There was a few that I started saying, I said no a few times, like, we literally can't do that, I'm really sorry, we have to. But then in the corner of your mind, you're like, that's going to go to someone else, and then they might then be there.
That's
go,
awful,
go
isn't it?
person.
Yeah. And I find myself thinking that when we have to recommend, another, I don't know, when I was freelancing, if I recommended a mate of mine who's also like a DP or an editor, I think, shit, if that guy really delivers on it, then there goes that relationship. But it's bad, isn't it? Like, it's because the network is so important, but you also have to look after your own brand and your own connections and so on. But I do like to live by the creed that, the more you give away, the more you get back. I think it works, and I hope others tend to play by those rules as well. But
I think they do. Well, certainly, I hope they do. Majority of the time, I will recommend someone else, but then the clients do come back. They're like, "Oh, the person you recommended was great, but we'd still love to use you. Are you available for this one?"
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Yes, I am for this time."
Before we wrap up, what would you tell your younger self? Would you have any advice for 23-year-old Ral just arrived back in the UK from film school?
Ooh, good question. I said I would have probably tried to go out on my own a little bit earlier. I was there for 8.5 years. I left after 4 years, actually, interestingly, for a month. And I think I panicked when I got one job in that month.
Yeah.
And I did that job, and then I was like, God, that's literally all I can get. And I was on the lookout and searching. But
it's
then
a scary
I went
feeling,
back.
right?
It's a scary feeling to go out there on your own. And I wasn't ready. I think to my younger self, I'd have said, I needed that. That production company was great, because I was thrown in the deep end. I did loads of really amazing shoots. I was traveling a lot, going to like India, Australia, all these places, a lot of times doing some really cool stuff. And then I think I'd say get out a little bit earlier, but prepare yourself before you leave. I think when I left, I hadn't really done much prep in terms of trying to market myself, trying to start a new production company, getting a website up and running.
Gotcha. So maybe try and have something lined up, have some connections.
Exactly. Yeah. When I went out after 4 years into the big bad world, I was sort of like, I've only got one connection. Even that one, there's not much work in it.
Yeah.
Whereas when I left after 8.5 years, I had a few sort of little leads, and then it was that kind of Jaguar shoot that I got that led to so much more.
Yeah.
So thankfully we did the Jaguar one well, and that went down well.
One leads to the next, leads to the next, yeah.
Leads to the next, yeah. So do one job really well, and then hope it leads to someone else. You can sort of show that off as a...
Are you still in touch with, are you still working with a lot of the people you worked with 10 years ago? I just wonder about the power of network, in that one often doesn't realize at the time how important people might be at a later date.
Yeah.
And it's if you're a good person and you just keep in, you work well and you get on well with people, it can open doors later, right?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
And I found that with our the big conference that I film with you every year in May, and then when we go to New York in December, I find that such a good crew we have there, and everyone gets on so well. It's almost everyone's got their skills, but it's almost to do with the personalities of people there, like almost because people get on so well and everyone's so nice. It leads to kind of speaking to other people and going, oh, I've got this recommendation. Like I used a few of the guys for that for various shoots I do, like yourself and Steve and Will and everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, that helps massively when you're on a good crew, because that leads to other things that you can get picked up on.
Definitely. Well, Ral, it's been great having you in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for asking me.
Well, we'd love to catch up again with you sometime in the future and see what's going on at Gilmo.
Sounds good. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thanks.
Cheers.